It's Lord of Lips here, and today we're going to talk about a special survey that has just opened up. And so each of the U.S. military's nearly 595,000 active duty spouses can now speak their mind about the military life in the latest round of a survey designed to collect their thoughts. And according to Patricia Montes Barron, Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Military Community and Family Policy, said in a release Wednesday that the confidential poll will remain open for about 8 weeks. Now, they are strongly encouraging all active duty spouses to take a few minutes from their busy days to complete the 2024 survey so that they can hear directly from them about what is and isn't working. The biennial survey gathers spouse perspectives on their satisfaction with military life, employment, relocation, as well as childcare and the overall health and well-being of military families. Spouses can participate in the survey in one of two ways. Defense Department spokesman Bob Ditchie told Military Times the first is as a part of a scientific study involving about 74,000 randomly selected active duty spouses, who will receive invitations by mail or email to respond to a longer version of the survey. Now, that version of the poll can take up to 20 minutes. Invitations will include a QR code to reach the survey online. A second option offers a shorter version of the survey, which takes about 5 minutes to complete and is open to the people who are not part of the study sample. Now, all spouses can visit the survey portal at dodsurvey.mil and enter their DoD identification number to find the version that applies to them. Now, eligibility is verified through the secure portal, but no personal information will be linked to the survey responses. The Pentagon has periodically surveyed active duty spouses since 1985, right? And in 2021, the officials broadening the pool by starting to solicit input from any spouse who is verified, in addition to those invited through traditional scientific sampling. Now, these questionnaires shed new light on what matters most to the military families, all right? For instance, the results of the 2021 spouse survey provided new details on food insecurity among military families. Nearly half of the junior enlisted spouses who had responded said they had experienced food insecurity, while several organizations offered non-scientific studies of the military community online. Official Defense Department surveys collect input that is verified as coming from slices of the military community, in this case, active duty spouses. DoD also runs separate quality of life surveys for active duty and reserve component troops, as well as component spouses. And so with that, right, that is a hot military topic that is going on right now. And so I thought it would be a great idea to come up with a question and, I'll provide my input. And if you have a thought on it, by all means, leave it in the comments, all right? So without further ado, here is the question. Have you participated in any previous military surveys? And if so, have you seen any changes or improvements based on the feedback provided? So I'm going to be honest with you, right? I have not really done a lot of surveys. I usually get a lot of them in my emails, and I kind of just ignore them. Now, that's not to say that feedback isn't important, right? Me personally, I like to do what is more conducive to, the unit that I'm working with. And in particular, I am a big fan of AARs, right? We do feedback all the time. Some of the best units in the world are as good as they are because they do AARs, or what is called after action review. And that is how they get their feedback, and they ensure that they record that and remember it. So later on, when they're doing, another training session or, training event, right, they're able to go back on that feedback and make sure that they adjust accordingly. But sometimes I do surveys, right? So like we recently just did a DOC survey, which is really just a survey of your command, right? And you talk about, certain things on how they are and what could they do better, right? You can also input specific comments to your leadership. And we actually just had a sit down in one of our theaters here where we talked about some of them, while not trying to isolate somebody, but, we talked about some of the comments on there. We talked about how was the unit, as far as being treated fairly, or is it a hostile atmosphere, things of that nature. So I do think surveys are important. Another question I would like to ask you guys is, what specific aspects of military life do you find most important or challenging, and how do you think they could be addressed or improved? So, what has been one of the most challenging aspects, especially in recent times, right? For me, it is your work life balance, right? That is extremely difficult to give equal attention to both. If you go too hard in work, your life balance usually starts to lower, right? And you usually start that's where you run into problems, right? Whether it's, you know, your situations with your spouse, your family, your children. You got to ensure that you have a good balance because it can mess everything up. And it is usually hard, especially when you're in a unit that has a high op tempo, right? I can tell you now, I have been in a situation where it was just, sprint, 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 do this back to back, training event after training event, going to the field, being away from family, that at one point I had to go and talk to my battalion commander and tell him, right, like one on one, like, yo, we are moving too fast and too hard as a unit, and we are starting to burn people out. Thankfully, we had a candid conversation, and we actually brought in the whole battalion to where we talked about these things, because sometimes, you're so focused in the ring that you're not paying attention to what's going outside of it, right? And so being able to have that talk and thankfully have have leadership that is willing to listen to soldier problems is what can help benefit not only yourself but the unit. So again, to bring it back around, right? Work-life balance is a pretty hard thing to even out. And for me, that's one of the harder things that, you will have to deal with. I'm not saying you need to do a survey on your guys to see how they're, doing, but you definitely need to have your finger on the atmosphere of what your unit or your guys are going through, if that makes sense. Anyway, I hope I didn't talk too much in circles, but those are my two follow-up questions to what was going on in this topic, right? And by all means, feel free to put in the comments what you think about it, all right? Love y'all, and I will catch y'all later.